All right. Okay, meeting is called to order. Pledge allegiance. Please rise. United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So we have all members attending the meeting, but we have two that are attending remote, and that is Vanessa Matias and Rick Edelman. Judith Schaefer, the secretary, is attending the meeting remotely as well, but she does not have a camera at her disposal to be viewed. So she will be in the background taking care of business as usual, doing a great job as usual. So, yes.
Did anyone give you kind of the verbiage that you're supposed to read about, start?
Oh, that's right too, for having a remote meeting.
Yeah, and then you have to do a verbal roll call, and they have to say whether they're alone.
Oh, yes, I forgot all
I mean,
about that.
technically, this isn't a remote meeting. Although, technically, this is not a remote meeting since we're here in person, but Right to Know does require when you have remote attendees that they state for the minutes why they're attending remotely and where they are and if anyone's around.
Well, I don't think you have to state why, but you have to state where you are and if you're with anyone else.
Reason for remote attendance is part of the Right to Know law.
All right. I forgot my glasses this evening, so I cannot quite read very well.
What do you need?
I need somebody to read that documentation for the remote meeting. So,
It's not a remote meeting. This is a live in-person meeting. You don't need to read that whole verbiage.
Because we have a quorum present.
We're meeting in person, so you
right,
don't have
but
to read that whole
that still doesn't need to be stated for the two people that aren't.
They need to state for the minutes the reason for their remote attendance, their location, and who's around them.
Okay.
That's
All right.
just the two people attending. And all the votes need to be by roll call.
Okay, so we'll start off with Vanessa. Vanessa, did you hear that? That you got to state your name, your reason why you're not attending, and if anybody is in the same location as you.
Okay. Vanessa Matias. I am at the tail end of a nasty head cold, so I didn't want to bring my germs in there. And I am alone, but I cannot guarantee that I will not have a child walk by the room at some point.
Okay, thank you. Rick?
Yeah, Rick Edelman, in my den alone, and I'm not attendance because I'm at my home.
All right. So. Next up is the approval for the minutes of April 23rd, 2020.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to approve the minutes as written from April 23, 2020.
Second.
All right, so minutes are approved. All right. Right there.
Without objection.
Oh, okay, so there's no objections to it. And
Yeah.
anybody object to that? To the approval of the minutes? Vanessa, Matt? No. All right, I mean, Rick, sorry. Okay. All right. One of the points of discussion that I would like to bring up is that on our calendar that we initially received, it stated 29th, October 24th, and it should actually be October 29th. So you need to make the change to the calendar on that.
That's for our optional if we need it.
Is that the optional?
That's if there are any other questions after tonight. For follow-up or more.
Or do you have that? The original calendar? I'm sorry, I thought I had one here.
We'll get to it.
See what I put in my phone. I'm not sure.
Actually, you
I
have
don't know
noted
what
down
they were
here on our
calendar.
agenda, if required, next meeting, if required, Thursday, October 29th, additional
Oh,
questions
okay.
and responses,
So
if
that-
not,
that
on
was-
Wednesday, November 4th. So you've got it on the agenda.
All right. Good. Okay, so then, we need a motion for the proposal to change the budget committee meeting time from 7 PM to 6 PM.
Wait.
And there's something.
Did we just, I'm sorry, are we accepting the budget, the budget calendar? Are we on
Yeah.
that agenda item?
That was just to make the correction of the date, wasn't it?
Nat, didn't you have an amendment that you wanted to make?
I was going to address it when they brought it up.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
Matt's,
sorry, that's a separate, okay.
all the
I
stuff that
see- I
Matt's
see
gonna be
that down
talking
here
about is
separately.
coming up.
Okay. All right,
I'd like to make a motion for purposes of discussion that we change our meeting time from 7 PM to 6 PM.
second,
Okay. Votes on this. Vanessa, how do you vote on that? Changing the time from 7 PM to 6 PM for our meeting,
Initially, I thought I would be okay with it, but a few things in my house have changed a little bit. And 7 PM actually still works better for me. It gives me enough time to get everybody where they need to be without being late to multiple meetings. So I vote to stick with 7, please.
She was saying that she would like to stay with 7 PM, as it
Okay.
works best for her own situation.
I'd like to just make a statement about the motion. There were a couple of reasons why I wanted to ask us to discuss it, and it doesn't mean that, it's what works for everybody, but one was that our administrators end up having a very long night, and then a long commute home, and then the second is that a lot of the reason why we had it at 7 was because of various members' work schedules and they couldn't make it to 6 o'clock, which maybe even that's the situation right now, which means that, to me, you have to honor that. I just wanted us to at least have the conversation.
I'm flexible for either time. I'm flexible.
Rick?
Yeah, I mean, 6 is going to be tight for me on most nights, but I'd be fine with 6:30. But if remote is an option and that remains an option, then I'm fine either way.
What's causing that feedback?
The microphones are picking up the sound from the speakers.
So you could hear me or cannot hear me?
Second it, Tammy?
I did second it.
Okay,
Are you asking me to withdraw my second?
if you would, yeah.
I guess, I'm in favor of 6 o'clock personally.
Well, I'm in favor of it too, but if it doesn't work for one of our members, then
Well, it was gonna be a nay for me on that because 7 o'clock works best for myself as well.
okay.
Home life just between 5 and 6 o'clock is just crazy. So, all right, so that is not gonna be happening. All right. So the meetings will remain at 7 PM. And now, anybody else have anything else to bring up? During this process.
I couldn't do any better, so.
That's right.
No worries.
Okay, so, well, I was just gonna ask if Rick or Vanessa had anything that they wanted to bring up or have a discussion about.
There's a ton of feedback. I don't know where it's coming from, just so you know, but.
Take your envelope off. Sensitive things. So there was nothing from the two of you, Vanessa or Rick.
I'm all set. Yeah, there is some comments that there's some feedback.
I
honestly didn't hear what Rick Edelman had to say because of all the reverb. So if you wouldn't mind just restating the reason why, the 7 o'clock proposal does or does not work for him. I just didn't hear.
Yeah, 7 o'clock does work for me. The 6 o'clock did not work for me. Welcome.
I want to thank the committee for being willing to, debate it and just decide what works best for us. Thank you.
All good. All right. Mr. Angel takes the floor.
Okay, so in front of you is the budget calendar. And this is the budget calendar that was presented to the school board at the last meeting. And one of the recommendations that we had made, which we need approval of this committee, is to move the public hearing from January 4th to an earlier date. But before we do that, let me just kind of quickly go through the same bullet points that I gave the school board. And just so that everyone is kind of familiar with some of the important dates, or the important dates that I see as important. The first one on the first page is November 4th. That's the day that the superintendent's going to present the budget at a joint meeting of the school board. And the
May I
budget.
make a suggestion that you move your papers, the microphone to the side? Yeah.
Okay. The second one is on the second page, and that's December 10th. And that's where the budget committee is going to approve the preliminary budget.
What?
On December 10th. It's on the second page.
December 10th.
Yep, on December 10th.
Okay.
Budget committee approves the preliminary budget. Okay. Right now, we have January 12th for the deadline for petition bond articles and petition warrant articles. January 14th for the budget committee holds the public hearing for the budget and the warrant articles. And then January 20th is going to be the filing deadline for district officers. February 3rd is going to be the first session of the annual school district meeting, which is called the deliberative. And March 9th is going to be the second section of this annual school district meeting, which is the ballot section. I made a request to see if we could get the budget committee to move the public hearing to a date earlier than January 14th. And the reason for this is because we just want to make sure that there's enough room in the calendar to push this date back. So say, for example, we have a significant snow event and we're going to run out of time with the public hearing. Okay.
I've gone over this a little bit and looked at it, and it seems to me that there are a couple of challenges, one of which is the deadline for the petition warrant articles and bond articles are January 12th, which those have to be presented at the public hearing. So I had asked Matt, and he said that that's kind of the last day by which, and we could ask the school board to change that date to like December 23rd before Christmas break, so that we can then have the time to prepare our public hearing the first week in January, and then give it maybe on January 12th. Would be, that would be what I came up with. I'm not sure when the CBA is supposed to be done. I think that's also on January 12th, isn't it?
It is.
So I don't think we should have the meeting before the CBA. But all those things should be presented at that public hearing.
Yeah. Just to give a little guidance, I gave another handout that looks like this. I just want to make sure that everyone understands how the budget calendar was put together. These are just supporting documents. So the first one is a document that we get from one of our attorneys, and it specifies all the state statutes that go into each of the deadline hearings. I'm sorry, the deadlines that we have to adhere to. The second page is the same calendar, but it was issued by the Department of Revenue Administration. Okay, and these are basically what you want to do is you want to take these two documents and kind of make everything fit within your school district calendar. And a lot of these are just like absolute drop dead dates where something has to be completed by. Okay. And then I gave a couple of RSAs in anticipation of discussing when the petition warrant articles, the date for petition warrant articles, and the date for public hearing. Okay. And what I found is that the dates that we provided are near the drop dead date, but we can push them back to an earlier date in January. We just can't go to a later date in January.
So who would be the decision maker to move the deadlines for the petitioned warrant articles and bond articles up? Would that be us, or would it be us and ratified by the school board, or is it the school board?
I believe it's the school board, but I think it would be great if the budget committee also gave an opinion on it as well. Because it would be nice if both boards were on in concurrence of the calendar.
So what's the question? You want to move it to what date?
Yeah, so what I'd like to do is, or what I've been proposing is to move the public hearing to a week earlier, so to January 7th. Earlier today, I heard a suggestion to move it to January 12th, which would just give us 2 extra days. But we can also move the petition warrant articles to an earlier date.
So because of the CBA on January 12th, you know, that's due by then, and I don't think it would be good to kind of try and rush that and give them an earlier date for that. It seems to me that we ought to have our earliest date that we could have our public hearing would be January 12th. And that also gives us still the 7th to put any final touches on the presentation.
Is that what we're proposing right now is January 12th?
I think that would be I would prefer the 7th, but I think January 12th is a great compromise.
The thing is that the CBA has to also be heard in public hearing, so, you know, it's not due till the 12th.
Yeah, but we could hear that CBA that night during the budget committee.
That's what typically is going on.
Yep.
So can I ask a question? What's different this year, the budget calendar and the timeline in between, you know, the different dates from like last year? Like, why is there a different proposal this year than last year in terms of the timeline in between?
Last year, we ran into a problem with the public hearing where there were some officials that weren't able to make it that night. And we tried to move it at the last minute, and it was very difficult. So we still had the public hearing as it was scheduled without these people.
But they weren't able to make it for what reason? I mean, it's been on the budget calendar. So are you saying we couldn't move it? They couldn't make it because of illnesses, or yeah, I mean.
No, the problem is last year they had scheduled time leave before the budget calendar was created, and they couldn't.
Okay, but so why are we pushing to change it this year? You know what I mean? Like, so what is the reason that we're trying to change it?
So that's not a likelihood this year for that particular scenario. We just want to avoid time constraints in that time of the year. We'd like to try to build in some cushion into the budget calendar in order to, like, if something were a surprise that comes up, we can always move the date back. So we're not rushing around to change the calendar.
Well, and also with COVID, we have so many unknowns out there that who knows, you know. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend to the school board that they change the deadline for the petition warrant articles and bond articles to December 23rd. Well, somebody has to second it, and I'll make a comment.
Second.
The reason I'm saying December 23 is that's before the district shuts down for Christmas vacation, and therefore it can be delivered into the office and, you know, and be there. And then when we get back together again in early January, we'll have all the known pieces. to put together to put together our presentation.
So what was it you wanted to move to the 23rd?
I wanted to recommend to the school board that they move the deadline up to December 23. The petition warrant articles and bond articles.
From January 12th to December 23rd.
Right. Right. So before the Christmas holiday instead of after.
Can I comment or do I have to wait?
Are you looking into that too? I thought we were talking about the January 14th.
I can't hear anything that's being said.
Matt did say that he thought it would be great if we made a recommendation to the school board to change those petition warrant articles and bond articles. So I was taking that as the first step.
Okay, so we're talking about changing two different dates.
So the school board has to change the petition bond and warrant articles.
Okay.
So what Matt suggested is that we make a recommendation about that, and then we can look at what our date would be for our public hearing. So I was kind of taking it in two steps with my motion.
So you want to move the January 12th deadline to 12/23.
Right.
And Matt still, now that has no effect on the January 6th that Matt wants to move to the 13th or 14th.
Well, he wants to move the 14th earlier. He'd like it by the 7th, but that doesn't really jive with the CBA. The collective bargaining agreement,
Right.
sorry.
So can I ask a question? I don't know if I'm allowed to at this point. I kind of don't remember. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Vanessa.
I guess I want to make a statement. I don't know about you guys, but I think making anything due right before Christmas is very difficult for people. You know, I think there's a lot of other things going on in people's lives, and giving them that time in between Christmas and New Year's. I mean, me personally, I have a lot more downtime in those weeks. So to say to somebody that something's due 2 days before Christmas, I think is putting an undue stress on people. But that's just my opinion. I don't think that that's a fair, date.
Okay, so her comment was that she doesn't, correct me if I'm wrong, she has no objection to making the changes, as it would relieve some of the pressure on the people that are involved with it. And she has downtime during those, between Christmas and New Year's and around that area.
Okay.
So it really wouldn't affect her at all. Is that correct, Vanessa?
No, I'm sorry. What I was saying is, I think making the due date of something on December 23rd is not a realistic expectation with the holidays right there. I think that that's causing more stress on people. You know, I think January 12th gives people that extra time after the holiday to do what they need to do, where if you're requesting something to be done 2 days before Christmas would put a lot of stress on people. That's just my personal opinion. I could be completely off base there, but if somebody told me you had a big deadline 2 days before Christmas, I would probably, fly off a handle.
I'd just like to point out that just because a deadline is on the 23rd doesn't mean that somebody has to wait until then to get their 25 signatures to put a petition warrant article or a bond article in.
Yeah.
They could start doing it now and have it in next week, if they wanted to.
But I guess to Vanessa's point, what's the difference between the 23rd and January 4th?
You want January 4th? I mean, somebody have a better idea? I was just throwing out a date.
Well, I mean, I'm just going off of what Vanessa said, and I sort of agree. I mean, with everything that's going on with everybody, homeschooling, uncertainty, maybe having those extra 2 weeks over Christmas break would help people out. So, I mean, January 4th seems like a good compromise.
I could go with that. I'm willing to amend my motion to the fourth,
To January 4th.
yeah, to January fourth. I mean, the whole purpose is just to have it in during, when the schools are open, and to have it before the public hearing, that's all.
The kids are back in school by this SAU is open by January 4th.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I was just going to my calendar to see what day of the week that was.
So I'd be
No,
happy
me
to
too.
amend.
It's a Monday.
It's a Monday.
Monday. Thank you, Rick.
I did not.
I did.
You did? Would you, is it okay to
Sure.
change it to the fourth?
Yes.
All right. So. The deadline for the January 12th event, the deadline to be petition bond articles of $100,000 the second Tuesday in January, provided, however, that if a petition article proposes a bond governed by the RSA 33.8-A, the deadline shall be the preceding Friday, along with the deadline for the petition articles, the warrant and budget submission date for collective bargaining agreements, second Tuesday in January. Those two events, or currently scheduled dates, are now going to become January 4th.
Actually, we're going to just recommend to the school board that they change them to January fourth.
Okay.
And we'll vote on it.
Sure. All right, so take a vote on that event, changing, recommending to the school board that we change the dates from January 12th to January 4th. We'll start off with Rick. Yeah,
I agree. I agree.
Vanessa?
In favor?
Mary?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so it's unanimous that the budget committee now recommends that the events happening on January 12th, 2021 are now going to be on January 4th, 2021. Yes. Oh, Matt.
I'd also recommended that, that you move the public hearing back as well.
14.
That was the one that's on January 14th.
Right. And
So
you won't,
you had to move the petition warrant articles in order to make room to move back the public hearing.
okay, so you wanted to move the January 14th event for the budget committee. There's two events happening that day. Actually, there's more than that. No, wait a minute, sorry.
What is the date you're proposing that we move it to, Matt?
Originally I was proposing January 7th. I did hear earlier today a recommendation of January 12th. Either day is fine for me. If it was January 7th, it gives us more than a week to, if something were to arise, it would give us more than 7 days to notify everyone that we'd have to move the date back. See, the problem is where January 14th is, we only have a handful of days where we can move it back under the statute. And it's hard to give out notice to the taxpayers to actually change that date. If we moved it to January 7th, which is going to be the day after the school board presents their final budget, then, I'm sorry, the day after the school board, the school board approves the preliminary school district warrant with the petition warrant articles, then it's going to, it'll just happen faster. And then it'll give us more time to react to any concerns that may push the deadline back.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sorry, Annie.
The only concern, I don't care what day we have it, but the only concern I have is that I know that historically we've been spending that first week in January to put together the presentation. And, it's kind of hard to put it together entirely before Christmas and before any warrant articles in or anything else. It's just the timeline is really hard for the budget committee to
Sure.
get your public hearing for your presentation.
Yeah, it's backing us up.
Yeah. So what I was thinking is that if we went with that first Monday or Tuesday, the 11th or 12th, that would be, it would give just that time for us to have a meeting on the 7th and then to have the public hearing on the 11th or 12th, which still gives us till the 19th by the state regulations. So it still gives us a week of flex time. So I think it might be a good compromise.
Okay. All right.
Do you want to propose the 11th or the 12th? And we'll make
No,
a motion?
Do you want to see if there's a thumbs up if a Monday or Tuesday works best for the members? Because the 11th is a Monday and the 12th is a
12th is a
Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah. Yeah, so how do we feel about that? We're moving the events from the 14th to either the 11th or the 12th of January. Rick, how do you feel about that?
I'm fine with both days.
Okay, so that's one thumbs up. Vanessa?
I'm,
Yourself?
I'm okay with both days as well.
Same.
Okay, Tammy?
Yep.
Laura?
Fine.
All right, I'm good with
Me
it.
too?
Okay.
Good.
All
Then
right.
why don't I make a proposal, I'll make a motion that we hold our public hearing on Monday, January 11th with a snow date of January 12th.
Second.
All right.
You want to call the roll or?
Sure. Okay. So we're voting on this now. Go with Vanessa,
Aye.
Rick,
I agree.
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Aye. Okay.
Okay, unanimous. All right,
Can-
thank you.
Can I just ask one question, Matt? Is it just the January 6th dates, SAU office completes the final draft? I'm just wondering why that's not in chronological order. Is that a typo or is it really January 6th? It just goes January 6th, the 12th, and then back to the 6th.
Yeah, this is
It's
just
just the
a
way it was
form that
written.
was moved forward from year to year. On the final version, I'm gonna move that back,
Okay,
so it's in order.
okay.
Okay. So then now we are moving on to the address the questions for the fiscal year 16 to 21.
Okay. I've provided a copy of the answers in front of you. And for those members that are virtual, there should be a PDF file of this in your email. The first question is really, it says it's a big picture question and it deals with unexpended funds at year end. What was the allocation of year end unexpended funds plus tax impact for each town? Please include reserves retained from fiscal year 19 as well as reserves voted to be held in fiscal year 20. The answer is, looking at unexpended funds at year end is a reduction to the tax rate of $1.49 to Kingston and $2.04 to Newton. I just have to point out my tax rate impact has changed since then, since when I wrote this. I did a presentation last night to the Finance Committee. that was more up to date. So if you want to look at some of the tax rate information, look at the finance committee meeting last night. Let's see. I did want to say that the results look odd to me, where Kingston student count decreased faster than Newton's. So basically, what's happening is the allocation between the towns is changing because the student population in Newton is growing faster, or actually it's declining slower than Kingston's student population. So the apportionment between the two towns is shifting. Let's see. Now,
Matt, I just wanted to point out that your tax rate is based on last year's Newton valuation, and the new valuation numbers are not out yet, and it's gonna be different.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually on this presentation, I was using last year's Kingston rates. But Kingston has since posted all their rates. And so to the finance committee that I did last night, I included some of the more current information from Kingston. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I went on to say that if we change the analysis and look at the estimated tax rate as a whole, Kingston's estimated rate is $16.15, and Newton's rate is $21.46. This is a 6% reduction in Kingston and a 1% reduction in Newton. Okay. So item number 2, and this deals with regular education salaries in the district. The question is what is this position and why did the line item change? And basically the answer is the account relates to sick leave payment. This payment is a payment to employees for unused sick time. This line item was reduced from 80,000 to 65,000 in fiscal year 2017-18. The actual expenditure against this line item does not warrant an appropriation of 80,000. Okay. Number 3. The question relates to a group of line items that deal with support staffs. The question is please explain what positions and purpose, assuming Paris for early intervention, how many and how used. And the answer is these are reallocations due to reorganization of the district. Okay.
I'm sorry, what kind of reallocation?
So basically what's happening is we've had to move employees around the district. Okay, because literally every building we've had to move almost every single classroom, which moves all the employees around the district. Okay.
So the 70 is a district number, isn't it?
That's
Isn't
for
that-
the next question.
No, in this budget code, number 3, when it goes 51140-0-70, isn't 70 a district-wide?
But that goes to the next question.
Oh, you're right. Sorry.
I do that all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we move on to that one?
Yeah.
I did that, I'm sorry.
Okay. So number 4, and this deals with support staff for the tech department. And the question is why the line item, why the change in the line item and what positions and what do they do? Basically, this is the support staff, such as the gentlemen that are running the cameras. This is where their salary is coming out of. And we had a change of employees in the network manager position. And the largest portion of this change relates to termination benefits for accrued vacation. So an employee left and we had to pay them their vacation. Okay. Number 5, this deals with supplies expenditure and it's for various line items. And what they're commenting on is that the expenditures are less than the budget by roughly 24,000. And their question is what portion of the lower spending was due to remote learning implementation? Typical supply expenditures are less than the budget, and that this is the case in fiscal year 20. For supplies overall in the district, what portion was lower due to remote learning? What portion was due to budget tightening to permit permit the middle school construction in fiscal year 20. And it's a general answer is that COVID had an effect across the entire district's budget. However, the budget was decreased pre-COVID. So the numbers that you had actually are larger numbers than what the budget is that we're operating in the current year. Okay, so we're actually operating with less supply funds this year than we have been in the past.
Excuse me. The question has to do with, what portion was due to remote learning that was a supply savings, and what portion was due to budget tightening to permit the middle school construction? I wonder if you can break it out by
Okay.
proportion.
So for much of the supply, they purchased most of the supplies during the first 7 months of the year.
Okay.
And then it slowly dribbles in after that. So I would tend to say that not much related to remote learning. Now, for permitting the middle school, we didn't choose to take from these funds. Rather, what we did is we took a percentage from schools' entire budgets, individual schools' entire budgets. So I went to each school and I said, can you please, we're going to cut 1.45% from every single line item. Okay. Mind if I move on to the next one? Okay. So number 6, online access fees. The question is past expenditures have been about 17,500 actual. Why is the budget amount 20,000 higher each year? Please review all information access fees totals, budget versus actual for the past 5 years, and explain. And what I said is agreed. For fiscal year 21 operating budget, the budget amount was reduced to be more in line with anticipated expenditures. As of today, which is when I wrote this was October 9th, we had $667 available appropriation remaining, the current appropriation of $20,855.11,
Okay.
which is a reduction of $18,000 from the prior year. So what the point is that the current appropriation is more in line with our spending. I don't know, the mask is hiding that I'm smiling. All right, number 7. This deals with replacement equipment, and there's various line items. And the question is more equipment was replaced at year end this year. What was the total and the source of these funds? Some came from COVID monies, some came from the budget. What line item? When will more detailed capital improvement plan be developed, approved, and implemented for books, technology, musical instruments, athletics, etc.? What about for buildings and grounds? And the answer is we only received $117,291.91 of CARE Act funding. The school board authorized to use the funds towards Chromebook purchases. Through this, we were authorized to purchase 429 Chromebooks. To date, 400 have been received and will be distributed to children soon. More information on the types of COVID funding for schools can be found at, and I gave you a link of all the funding that we can use. Now, what's changed since that date is there's a group of schools that have got together and have asked FEMA to try to open up some funding. So that I've got my fingers crossed that we may get some additional funding soon. Anyways, the capital improvement plan is currently being vetted by the facilities committee. We've been focusing on large ticket items for musical instruments, athletics, and other small type purchases, which do add to a large amount. A plan is being created while we perform audits of these programs. Buildings and grounds are being planned through the CIP process. Recently, we've been asked to compile COVID costs for anticipated FEMA grant. Okay.
You also bought, as I recall, laptops for the teachers. How was that funded?
Boy, that was a while ago. I believe that was funded through the facility use revolving fund.
Okay, so that's basically the rents that we receive and,
Yes,
okay.
yes, that didn't impact the tax rate. Okay. And just remember, I'm just doing that off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and review my notes.
That's
to be
what I
accurate.
recall.
Okay.
Yeah.
So number 8, which is ACP incentives. The budget amount has been consistent and consistently unspent. Please explain what this is for, why budgeted, and why not spent. And the answer is, according to our collective bargaining agreement with our teachers, we're required to fund ACP incentives at this level. It is per the CBA agreement that we have to put that money aside. And if it's not spent, it just gets returned back to the taxpayers.
What does ACP
That was
stand
my-
for?
Oh my goodness, I knew that. And I know that Stack is at home going, yeah.
You can email it to us.
Yeah. Let's see, number 9. This deals with tech administration salaries and support staff and overtime. The question is the amount spent exceeded the budget? Was this due to remote learning or other reasons? What portion for what cause? And the answer is this is a one-time payment to an employee upon retirement.
Excuse me,
Rick?
ACP is alternative, so you know, I mean, it's good being at home. You can look this stuff up. Alternative certification program.
Alternative certification program is what he said.
Yep.
What was it?
Alternative certification program.
Okay. Thanks, Rick.
Number 10, and this deals with data communication for the tech department. What portion of this increase over budget was due to remote learning costs? Why is the big increase for 2021? And the answer is we increased the throughput of our internet access. With remote learning from our buildings, we're finding we need additional bandwidth needs. Going forward, I expect this line item to increase in size. Okay. Number 11. There was various accounts specified here, and this deals with special education salaries. Why increase for the current fiscal year? And the answer is the increase from fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 20 is 2.24%, which is generally the CBA step and grade increase. However, the district reorganization also played a part in the increase.
In what way?
Moving staff around.
What?
Moving staff around. So let's see. I have to think about that.
Okay.
They did that during the day. So what you'll find for special education is that a lot of the costs follow the students as they progress through the school. So they'll have a teacher or a special education employee that follows that student throughout their program or career at the school district. Okay. And so you're going to see the line items change. So it'll be, as they progress from first to second, you'll see the expenditures moving down the line. And then also we'll be moving in and out. I remember what it is. We hired a more experienced teacher for special education that replaced a less experienced teacher, which cost. I knew that if I talked about it, I'd remember. Number 12, and this is also about special education support staff salaries. And the question is were all special education support staff paid during remote learning? Was there a reduction in needs over budget? What was the cause of the decrease from budget amount? Why the increases for the current fiscal year? And are there new needs? And the answer is yeah, before jumping into the answer, this is a great example of the cost following the students from one school to the next when comparing year to year. Regardless, all support staff were paid during remote learning. As a result, there was no decrease in the budget amount. The increase shows the movement of employees between schools where the need is located. The overall increase is 1.97%, which is due to the CBA step and grade changes. We anticipate an increased need when we transition from remote learning to in-person learning. However, 2 therapist specialist positions were added while related contracted services were reduced as we transition to employees providing services. Additionally, there is an employee shift due to reorganization of the district. Okay. Number 13, which deals with special education tuition. Please explain the budget versus actual for fiscal year 20 and the budget for fiscal year 21. The answer is tuition is paid to organizations other than the district for specialized special education needs that the district could not provide efficiently or effectively. Annually, the needs are reassessed, and students are placed in programs that best fit their needs. Additionally, tuition rates increase between 5 to 8% per year in related services for items not included in their tuition.
Can I ask a question?
Deals with contract consultants for preschool.
Matt, can I jump in real quick? Can you hear me?
Vanessa, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I was under the impression, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the special ed support staff had actually decreased. So I guess I don't understand why the budget went up if there was a reduction in staff for special ed.
Are you talking about the tuition or are you talking about the support staff?
Oh, was that at the support staff salaries? I was told that the support staff was reduced. Um, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I was told.
Question 12 that you're referring to?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying to jump in, but he rolled right on to the next one. So it takes me a minute to unmute myself.
Okay, what I have for that is, first off, there was an increase in the CBA step and grade from one year to the next.
Yeah.
And,
But was
and,
there a reduction to the number of support staff
and then
should have offset that increase?
unfortunately, I've addressed this with another person, so I have to rely on that person. That what she said is that 2 therapists and specialist positions were added, while related contracted services were reduced. So in that particular case, what it is that they found that it was less expensive to hire the specialist as an employee rather than paying for a consultant to come in and perform the same service. Annie?
I was actually going to ask that question because that typically is the case. Sometimes we can't find those specialists except with a contracted service and like the psychologist, and it'd be so much less expensive to us, which is one reason we can't find them, to go from contracted to an employee.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Let's see, I believe we're on 14.
14,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. The question, that's on the other page. The question deals with contract consultants for preschool, and what is the reason for the increase? And the answer is our board certified behavior analyst services increased at the preschool level, and this is a contracted service provider. So the cost increase from the contractor. Okay. 15, supplies and services for athletics. What portion of the lower budget what portion of the lower than budgeted spending was due to remote learning? First, the appropriation was decreased to $28,658 for these accounts from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 21. All of these accounts were impacted by COVID when the budget was frozen. The program and also the programs currently being reviewed. $16, technical services guidance. What was budgeted and why was the actual lower? The answer is the large account relates to PSAT testing. Anticipating need for this activity is difficult where we budget for the worst case scenario. $17, this is other professional services, psychologists. Question is, why was the actual less than budgeted? Recently, rates for the service increased. Okay, psychological services really depends upon need. It's not really something that we can anticipate from one year to the next because you really can't, because we bring them in when students need services. Okay. 18. This deals with other professional services for speech. Why lower than budgeted? The answer is, again, rates increase for services. Again, speech is also one of those services where we bring them in for need. And it's, yeah, there's some students that we can anticipate that there's a need for, but then there's also a group where we just don't know what kind of need we're budgeting for 18 months in advance. So it's you're pulling out your crystal ball for that.
So that's a contracted service? I thought we had speech pathologists on staff.
Yes, this is a contracted service.
Do we have speech pathologists on staff?
We do have people that are assisting students with their speech. My child was getting some of that prior to the COVID event, but I don't believe she was a dedicated speech therapist. I think she was, I can't think of the resource's name, but she was in Memorial.
Yeah, I believe it's a contracted service rather than an in-district service. That could change for the current year because they do flip-flop between employees and contracted services when we can find people to hire. Number 21, this deals with high school custodial administration. Why the increase?
No,
Oh, you skipped ahead.
Skip 19.
Sorry, 19, information access fees for the library. The question is why actual so much lower than budgeted? What was planned since historical actuals are so much lower? And is there higher due to fiscal year 20 having been a default budget? The answer is, while the default budget's an answer for good numbers, for a good number of line items, it's not the answer for this one. Here, actual spending does not meet expectations.
What does that mean?
The line item could go lower.
Okay.
I believe last year, Mr. Ambrose addressed this before because he said that he wasn't going to be purchasing books in anticipation of the school's reorganization. So he wasn't going to turn around and take in a delivery of books and have teachers and librarians trying to organize something that they don't know what they're going to have room for.
Yeah, he did say
So
that.
I don't know if that's the
But
exact.
this isn't books, though. This is info access fees.
Oh, okay.
This is
I'm sorry.
online fees.
This is online. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I addressed something different there. All right.
But that was a good thing to remember. Yeah.
Okay.
Number 20, this deals with legal services. The question is why so much spending? What's the difference from fiscal year 19 where spending was over 90,000? And we spent 63,000 last year. So the answer is labor negotiations and disputes, sales and leases of property, and other general matters. Unfortunately, I can't go into specifics.
Right. Okay. So some of that won't be needed presumably at that level. I know we have labor negotiations always going on, but we don't have a sale of a property.
COVID is proposing interesting challenges for the current year, and I'll just put it
Good
that.
point.
Number 21. This deals with high school custodial administration. Why the increase in spending? The answer is due to a one-time employee retirement payment. This is when someone gets paid their vacation time upon retirement. 22. This is the custodians for the middle school. The question is, why are we retaining middle school custodians when we no longer have the building to maintain and clean? The answer is we are following cleaning protocols due to COVID and an increased number of people in the building.
So you found you need more staff per building? Okay.
And
23.
the people in the building though, I mean, isn't that other programs when they contribute to some of the costs of cleaning, or no, we're still fully responsible for that?
I can't hear her.
Yeah, she went out. Vanessa, could you repeat that again?
Sorry. The people that are in the middle school building, wouldn't they be responsible to contribute to some of the costs of cleaning? Or what, why is that fully on us?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
She's making reference to the middle school, saying that it's now leased out to a tenant. Why are we taking care of the maintenance of the middle school?
Oh, why are we taking care of the maintenance of the middle school?
No, the cleaning. Why are we taking care of the cleaning?
Of
No,
the
yes, I understand we have to maintain it, but why do we have to clean it if somebody else is occupying it?
old middle school?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
not cleaning the old middle
Yeah.
school. We're not cleaning the leased area of the old middle school.
Vanessa, I think you were saying that the custodian, the money from the middle school custodians went to the other schools because of the
Yes.
increased COVID.
The-
So we're not cleaning the middle school, we're just,
Oh,
it
okay.
just got reallocated to like the high school and the elementary schools
Yeah.
with the COVID.
So when we
Oh,
moved the middle school to the high school, we also moved the employees to the high school.
oh, got you. I'm sorry, I misunderstood completely. Thank you.
It was a great question.
It's a good thing we closed the middle school so we had the extra custodians.
Okay, number 23, which deals with utilities. What portion of lower spending was due to the shift to remote learning, and what are the causes of lower spending? The answer is there are two areas of reduced spending here. The first relates to remote learning, and the second relates to better anticipated heating oil pricing and quantity. The amount attributed to heating oil pricing is about 25,000, and we anticipated using 85,000 gallons of heating oil, but only used roughly about 68,000. The remainder is due to remote learning. I anticipate I anticipate fiscal year 21 will continue to show unusual trends due to COVID. Basically, when we went to remote learning, we turned the buildings off.
So it's really a one-time savings that we probably will not, providing we are able to successfully go back to school and not have to quarantine again.
That's right. Yeah.
Then it'll probably go back to the old number.
And for the public, I wrote down the number here that the reduced spending is. It's $188,000. So if I move on to 24, and the question deals with student transportation. There was a transportation credit for fiscal year 20. Where can this be found in the budget? Why is the spending higher than budgeted? The answer is the bus run was added to accommodate transportation to a local community college. The reduction or the credit that was asked about is located in the diesel fuel costs.
In the where? In the diesel fuel, sorry.
Yeah, and that you'll see that down below in the next question. We continue to pay for labor costs, but not fuel costs. The amount that the superintendent spoke about was an estimate the amount was actually larger than his estimate. Unfortunately, 25 was just an error there, so we're moving on to 26, and this deals with diesel fuel. And the question is the past indicates 65,000 is the norm. Why is the actual so much lower in fiscal year 20? And basically, the buses stopped running. Let's see. 27, which deals with information maintenance services. Why was the budget? No, what was the budget and why was the actual amount so much lower? The answer is for fiscal year 21, this line item was reduced to 331,500, which is more in line with actual spending. So just tightening spending. 28, which deals with reconfiguration. The original plan was to do the need for construction in 2021 with an early intervention staff added in 21-22. Please give an overview of the timeline, amounts budgeted and spent, staff changes made. Answer: in the current year, we moved teachers from classrooms to intervention positions. Under COVID, we've had to reverse that. As of today, there are 2 intervention positions, but we will probably be moving them to teaching positions due to teacher leave. Also, we're trying to cover the cost of COVID. There are special education pairs that are not filled until we transition to in-person learning. For more information related to the reorganization can be found on the district's website and I gave a link to the superintendent's presentation regarding the reorganization. Number 29. This deals with transfer to capital reserve funds. The question here is the amount approved for spending, the amount approved from voting in 2019. When and where is the 125,000 approved in 2020? Essentially, if it's approved in fiscal year 20, it is moved in fiscal year 21. So you're going to find it in this fiscal year that we're in right now. Okay, so the answer is fiscal year 21. This is because March meeting is for the following fiscal year. Okay. Number 30, revenues from fiscal year 2020. Now for this one, there's a handout that's in the back and it looks like this. It's called the monthly revenue report. I said for the answer, I'm sorry, the question is please give estimate revenue versus budget for fiscal year 20 with specific sources. So on the monthly revenue report, the left-hand column is the budget, the middle column is the actual, and then the right-hand column is either underperforming or overperforming on revenue. The answer is, highlights are Fremont tuition is greater than expected by 151,000. Catastrophic aid is greater than expected by 75,583. Adequate education grant is less than expected by $21,905. I do have a note there that the return is surplus of prior year. This is the amount that's at the bottom of the report. It shows up as a budgeted revenue for the following year. The 1,013,507 is the surplus from the prior year used to reduce the tax rate. We have to put it in the system to make the system balance, but it's not an actual revenue. Basically, we're budgeting for a net income loss. Annie?
It used to be, and it's kind of stopped, that you used to upload the monthly revenue and expense reports to our drive. Can we get that again so that we can kind of track what's going on?
Sure.
Yeah.
Actually, shortly, I'm going to be putting all that information on the district's website.
Okay.
So it should be available to the general public.
Shortly as in?
I've been trying to do it for the last 3 weeks. Let's see. Number 31, which deals with reserve and revolving funds. It says, please give a year-to-year comparison for all funds, including sources of funds added, what's been expended, and the remaining balance. And what I did was, instead of giving like a historical perspective, what I did is provide, and it looks like this. This is the report that I handed out to the Finance Committee last night. And what it does is it shows what the current balances are in the capital reserve funds and the expendable trust fund as of September 30th, and also for the entire last year. Also included in that report is the balances for the facility use revolving fund, where all of our building rentals go into.
Matt.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I can wait. Okay, Matt, these attachments, the attachments that you have, are you going to be scanning them, and can you scan them and email them to me if you don't mind?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Me as well, Matt. That's exactly what I was going to ask. Thank you.
One of the things, when I listened to the Finance Committee yesterday, and one of the things that was really great was with the 569,000 that was retained by the school board out of the unexpended funds, and these funds, we're at a total of 1.3 million, or 1.3 million in reserves, reserve funds, which, you know, that was really tight for a long time, and now we're getting to a point where that's 3.5% of our budget. We're getting to be kind of healthy. So it was really good news to hear.
Yeah. Well, I just go on a preface where these reserves, the 569,000 can only be used for emergency expenditures or to reduce the tax rate. Okay.
Right.
All the others that are listed on here can only be used for the specific purpose that the town meeting is, or sorry, district meeting is authorized. And off to the right hand side, I wrote in the actual warrant article that authorized that fund.
Oh, that's great. Thanks.
Okay.
But I just want to ask Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but I did ask earlier, you know, I asked Ms. Ambrose, none of the COVID related expenses would be considered emergency expenditures, correct?
At this time, the last FEMA guidance is that they're not emergency expenditures. However, there seems to be another bite at the apple that they're allowing us to compile all the COVID-related preparedness expenditures, and they're going to consider whether to do a FEMA grant or not.
Okay.
That's going to be coming up soon. Okay, Mary?
Will you have a specific, you know, major, minor code, something in your budgeting to designate that it's COVID related, whether it's a surplus or a deficit, so that it can carry through and roll up for voters to see when they look at documentation?
Without giving anything away, for the up and coming budget, what I was thinking is we're trying to budget as normal as possible. And I think that there's going to be a line item that's specific, that's general for COVID costs, because that is a complete unknown, because we don't know if we're going to be dealing with it next year or whether we're going to have actual in-person learning like we did last year. So.
And I ask because, I mean, forgive me if I'm stating the obvious, but what I'm hearing from constituents are questions such as, well, what are our savings from being in remote learning? And what is the surplus and how is that trickled down? People are curious, if not serious, about wanting pointed answers to how remote learning has impacted the budget. Everyone has concerns about everything having to do with COVID, but I'm hearing from people wanting to know specifically, how has it impacted the fiscal year that ended 6/30/20? How is it likely going to impact the in-force budget? And, you know, we have no idea how it's going to carry over, but we need to have some kind of a factor for it in forecasting for the next one. And I think the more clear and precise that you can provide that information to voters, the better it will be for everybody.
Okay, so I made a quick presentation to the finance committee last night on COVID related costs and also on surplus funds. So last night I said that about $2.3 million is being returned back to the taxpayers. That's an unprecedented amount. Basically, we put the brakes on the budget so hard that we're turning back an enormous amount of money. And I think it wouldn't be nearly this level if COVID didn't happen. Okay, so this is just like a complete unusual year that we're turning back so much money. But going forward, I've had to do a lot of purchases this year that we didn't even anticipate last year. For example, we bought 21,000 of these masks in anticipation of having kids in the building, not knowing that the state of New Hampshire was going to provide us with masks last Wednesday. We've also bought electrostatic sprayers to make sure that we can put sanitizer on touch surfaces. It's just the cost of buying individual.
Clearly, there are going to be one-time expenses and maybe, short-term expenses. But I think the more precisely you can specify those line items,
Yep.
whether it be in broad categories or in specifics talking about, what the machinery is and what it does. I just think that the voters are going to want to feel confident
Yep.
in how that all rolls out and how that likely will affect a future budget.
So at the meeting last night, I presented to the finance committee an actual detailed expenditure where I'm saying, like, I'm buying 500 of this item at this cost. I'm buying 1,000 of this item at this particular cost. So I'm not doing it in general by line item. I'm actually detailing out each item that is unusual that we've had to purchase. And really the way that we're trying to mitigate that loss is we've also frozen the budget this year. So we're trying to pay for all the COVID related costs for doing in-person learning and then see what's left in the budget and then allow the schools to purchase whatever they need going forward.
Can you make that list available, put it on the website or send it to us or do
Yeah.
something?
Yeah, I can make that available. And I just have to let everyone know that list changes all the time. And it changed even right after that I created for the finance committee, because I also was notified by special education of additional costs that they're facing because of COVID.
But yeah, it's a liquid situation, so it's, when it comes time to present the budget, people, I know, I want to see what we've gone ahead and done, and the purchases that we made are going to carry on for a couple of years before the stuff has to be replaced. So it's it's kind of like a lawnmower. It's not a one-time purchase, but it's going to hold in there for a while, and eventually need to be replaced.
Well, one of the goals we're trying to work on right now is normalize some of the purchasing levels. And I hate using that term normalizing in this COVID environment. But for example, like we've had to purchase isolation gowns for teachers who have to work with students. Like they're right, the student is standing right next to them. So they have to wear full PPE as they're working with the student. We didn't know what the quantity was when we first started back at the end of August. We know those levels now, and we're trying to do reorder points and make sure that we have a continued supply. We are finding that we're able to purchase items. It just takes a while to get it. Okay. So if you don't mind, I'd like to move on to question 34, which deals with retirement fund costs. And it says, please list.
Wait, 34?
Yeah, I think I jumped ahead.
Yeah, I think you did. You just find
You
your
really want to
back
go
up.
before.
Yeah, the line item transfers.
Oh. I don't have it. Where is that? Boy, I jumped ahead a couple of pages.
We were on.
Did the revolving funds.
Oh, yeah, okay, now, number 32. I'm having difficulty trying to pull that together. I can't do a detailed list out of our accounting system. And unfortunately, we scanned in all the documentation for that. So I'm gonna have to provide that at a later date.
I'd be happy getting it online, just having it emailed.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay. Let's see, 33. This deals with the CARES Act and ESSEN funds. The question is please list how COVID-19 federal and state funds received with sources and how spent. And what I said is this, okay, by the way, this is an excellent question. I want to make sure everyone understands that it's important for the public just to kind of know where the funding is. And unfortunately, we received only $117,291.91 of CARES Act funding. The school board authorized us to use the funds toward Chromebook purchases. Through this, we were authorized to purchase 429 Chromebooks. Today, we've received only 400. Now, I've also given a link to all the COVID-related funding for schools, and I gave the Department of Education's website where they can see all the available COVID funding. It's sparse. There's not much funding coming to schools for COVID-related relief in New Hampshire. Kenny?
I wanted to piggyback on what Mary was saying about, getting that list of the COVID expenses and stuff like that. And if you kind of combine that list and show, here's the expense, here's where it came from, that would be helpful. So, did it come from a supply line? Did it come from, the revolving fund for technology? Where did it come from? Or did it come from CARES or ESSEN money?
Okay, the only thing that came from the CARES fund is that the Chromebooks.
Right.
Okay. Let's see. Other related costs for the current year, we bought I think $125,000 worth of laptops for teachers. What we found is that during the remote learning, the teachers' laptops were inadequate, and so we updated it for the current year. And then also other COVID costs. The list that I provided the finance committee, almost all of those costs were funded through general taxation.
But general taxation, but when we're looking at the line items and looking to see where it was, I, for one, would like to know, did it come out of the supply line? Did it come out of, what lines did it come out of?
Yeah, generally it's going to be supply lines. In that too, I put in a number for student transportation because we're continuing to pay on student transportation without the buses rolling around the town. So that would come from a transportation line. But what I'll try to do is I'll try to add the account number to each of those lines to show where the appropriation is coming from. Okay.
Can I ask a really silly question? I should know the answer to it. But the Chromebooks that we're purchasing, are those for students that actually don't have them? Or are we replacing or?
Okay. Now, actually, the person to answer that question is right over there, but I'm going to try my best at this. The Chromebooks that went out to the students this fall, quite a few of them were destined to be recycled. What we try to do is we try to outfit the 9th grade with Chromebooks, and they carry those Chromebooks for their entire student career in the high school.
Yeah.
So what was handed out were Chromebooks from graduated students from prior years and are at end of life.
Okay.
So,
I think I have some. I know.
That's the general gist.
Do we have more Chromebooks that we need to purchase though? I mean, is that the,
We're au-
what
Sorry,
is
we're
that?
authorized up to 429, but we've only purchased 400.
Okay.
Number 34, which is, please list the total of all retirement contributions and related expenditures for the district for the past 5 years. And the district's contributions are as follows. For fiscal year 2020, we paid $2,479,169. For fiscal year 19, we paid $2,353,025. For fiscal year 18, we paid $2,310,119. And fiscal year 17, we paid $2,107,394. And fiscal year 16, we paid $2,144,016.
Yeah, I asked this question, and I asked it because I read that our required contribution to the state is going up by 3% for retirement plans, and I'm not sure, does that mean 3% of this number? So it's about $75,000.
I actually calculated it already. It's not as significant as you think it should be.
Okay, that's good news.
All right. 35. This deals with unexpended funds for the past 5 years. I'm assuming it's the unspent fund, the unassigned fund that gets used to reduce the tax rate. And it says, please chart the unexpended funds for the past 5 years, including emergency reserves. So, for fiscal year 2020, I didn't include the emergency reserve, which is that contingency fund. That's 569,000. So other than that, for 2020, we returned 2,305,355. The prior year, 2019, we returned $1,013,507, where 100,000 was used to reduce for capital reserve funds. In fiscal year 18, it was $1,504,483. Fiscal year 17, it was $1,125,634. Fiscal year 16 was $1,144,690. So I just want to point out the significance of the amount that's getting returned to the taxpayers this coming December, which is the $2,305,355, significantly larger than any other year for the past 5 years, primarily due to COVID.
But as a Newton rep, unfortunately, Newton isn't getting much benefit from that. It's all going to Kingston.
Why is that?
What?
Why are they getting
Why
the
is it
lion's
all going
share?
to Kingston?
Well, he went over that before. It was because of the proportion of the kids and it's their
Oh,
valuation
okay.
and all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the number of students, I think, dropped 75 students from one year to the next. And 75% of that drop was from Kingston and only 25% was from Newton. It actually changed the apportionment rate by 1% going either direction for each town. So off the top of my head, I think Kingston went from 55% to 54%, and then Newton went from 45% to 46%.
Matt, I know you said that you were gonna send that information to us or make it available in the shared file. You said you presented it to the finance committee last evening, and it is, you had just received some of the information and the valuation is changing for Newton and so forth. When do you think that will be available to us?
What, the document from last
Yeah.
night? I can email it to you after this meeting.
Okay,
Excellent.
thank you.
That's the question. I don't know if this is way off topic or not, but when we talk about COVID and the savings, do we know yet if the state revenue is gonna, the revenue that we get from the state, is that expected to go down? I mean, I know the state is getting less revenue from taxes and whatnot. Is, I don't know if it's a loaded question or not. Are we expecting that we're gonna be, we have these savings, but do we have any inclination that we're gonna be getting less money from the state because the state
Yeah,
has less money? Is
Yeah,
that kind of-
expect less money from the state.
What's that?
Expect less money from
Yeah.
the state.
So we might be talking about, oh, we're getting $2 million of savings, but next year we might get $2 million less from the state or
Yeah, it's,
X figure.
no, I think we get about $3.6 million from the state. That's just off the top of my head.
Right.
But I don't think the decrease is as significant as you think it is.
Okay, all right, so it should have minimal
Yeah,
impact.
yes.
Okay,
And that information, if you want to look that up yourself, I guess the best way to do it is just to do a Google search on adequate education for New Hampshire Department of Education.
Mhm.
And they list out the anticipated grant for, I think, the last 15 years. And they just published the amounts that we're going to expect just like a week ago. So that information's out there.
Matt, I wanted to, this is a little off topic too, but you made a comment on one of your slides earlier just regarding the heating expenses and the savings that you had last year, and you expect similar savings this year. But correct me if I'm wrong, with teachers being required to teach in the building, we're having to heat the buildings as if they were fully occupied with students as well, aren't we?
Can't hear you. Sorry.
I don't know if it's my voice or the,
Auditorium is meant to project sound out, and so when you're giving us sound, it's going to come here and it's really hard. So if you really try and blast it.
yeah, I don't have a voice. So hold on. So you made a comment in one of your slides regarding heating savings and how you expected that to carry on this year. But with teachers being in the buildings having to teach, I would expect that there won't be any savings in heating costs because you have to heat the buildings essentially now. And I'm sure there's other expenses as well now that people are occupying them, correct? That will sort of go back to normal.
Yeah. Okay. So for the savings, last year, what we did is even though we had custodians in the building, they were the only people in the building, and we were able to reduce the temperature in the buildings.
Mhm.
We also turned out the lights for a majority of the buildings. They worked pretty much in the light that was coming through the window for the most part. So our utility costs just kind of went off a cliff, so to speak.
Yeah.
It was so much so for the heating oil that we actually had to pay a liquidated damage fee of about 13,000 because we didn't produce the minimum required amount.
But that won't be true for this year because we do have to use the lighting and the heating because people are now occupying the buildings.
That's correct.
Okay.
And we have to open windows every once in a while, every hour or so. So the heating bill might go up.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's all I've got.
Thank you.
thank you.
Any further questions from anyone?
Public comment?
I'm sorry.
Public comment?
All right, so we're moving on to the public comment of the meeting. Anyone?
Our big public out there.
Okay, we're gonna go with there was no public comments. And how about committee comments? Vanessa? Any further comments?
Here's some.
Yeah, I mean, I like everybody else, am really interested in the breakdown that Matt sends over for the expenditures. I'm curious to see, what expenditures are made, where they're coming from. Just to get a good sense of what they're spending and what they anticipate, will be repeat spending and some of the supplies and stuff like that. And the savings as well. I'm really interested in reading all that. I think, a lot of folks are interested. But what I don't want folks to get is sort of complacent with the return that they got last year, thinking that it's going to be just as hefty this year because it is a different year. you know, we do have people in the buildings. There are expenses, you know, this year. So I just don't want people to get the misillusion that they're gonna get $2 million back into this year as well.
Annie?
Yeah, Vanessa, I'm sure you had something great to say, but I didn't get more than about 2 words of it. Can you try again?
Sure. I don't even know what I said. So I said, I'm really interested, like everybody else, in getting the breakdown from Matt regarding the expenditures and where they're coming from, and the full breakdown as to what they've had to purchase, as well as what they anticipate repeat purchasing to be. Um, I don't want the public to get the misillusion that they're going to get another $2.3 million refund, you know, at the end of this year, because it is a completely different year, different scenario. And there, you know, even though we do have probably significant savings, there will be a lot of spending as well. So I think that would be very helpful to be able to show to the public. Did you hear that?
Yes, we got you that time. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
All right, Rick? Any closing comments? Anything you want to bring up?
No, I just like to thank Matt for going through all the questions and answers tonight. Thanks, Matt.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Annie? I was
Yeah, that's basically what I wanted to do, is say thank you for, you know, dealing with all these and for all the audits that you're doing and all that kind of stuff that's going on behind the scenes that are going to help us have more accurate budget proposals for the future.
Okay,
So
great,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Christine?
Yes, I'd like to thank Matt as well. This is my first meeting, and all of his explanations have really helped me to understand things better. So thank you, Matt.
Great, thank you.
There?
Thank you,
Tammy?
Matt.
Lauren?
Nope, thank you.
Myself, thank you, Matt, for what you've done. Annie, for the questions you presented. I want to just give everybody the idea of how I'm trying to pay attention to the participants. I'm trying to pay attention to the people that are on the monitors more than the people that are present to me. So if anybody thinks I'm giving preference to Vanessa or Rick over anybody else, it's only because that I see that I could overlook their need to want to say something. So I'm kind of paying more attention to that area of the group. And, you know, I'm not trying to ignore anybody.
Well, we can throw things at
You could,
Yeah.
they-
I would like to thank you for my preferential treatment tonight. Thank you.
you.
all right. So other than that, that's all I have.
There's, oh,
Yeah, that was
Oh,
just
okay.
wrapping up a
okay.
committee comment. That's all. So our next meeting, if required, is October 29th.
We don't need that
For
one.
the additional questions. All right, so there will be no meeting on October 29th. All right. All right, so then we will see everybody on Wednesday, November 4th for the joint meeting at 6 p.m.
Sounds good.
All right.
Motion to adjourn,
Oh, sorry.
motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay. All right. Adjourned.